marvelous long reads.
Everyone in Mega City 1 fears running into Judge Dredd, but does everyone know what caused the need for Judge Dredd? What happened to the America of the future that created a need for ruthless judges patrolling the streets every living second? Today, we are doing a deep dive into the origin story of Judge Dredd, looking at the chain of events that created the iron-fisted Justice Department, narrated by the stone-faced lawman himself. A mysterious box and a string of murders led Judge Dredd to confront his past and contemplate the future of the law he so fiercely upholds. Chapter 1: The Dream. The story opens on a rainy night in the Cursed Earth, a Hell's Highway diner. A driver takes a swig of his beverage in the pouring rain and then tosses his cup into the nearby overflowing trash can. The cup falls out and the man looks beyond to see the bodies of two men lying dead by the garbage. By the west gate of Mega City 1, a freighter is stopped at the checkpoint. The patrolling judges check the drivers' names and declare that they're not on the manifest. The drivers reply that they are relief drivers who are substituting for the sick drivers on the record. While one judge is suspicious, another reports no stowaways, prompting the wary judge to let the carrier through. Inside, one of the drivers admonishes his cohort for nearly slipping up and blowing their cover. Meanwhile, at Sector House 213, an ever-scowling Judge Dredd gets drenched in the rain while making his way to the base. Another judge takes the lawman's coat from him and exclaims about the dirty rain, but is glad that the torrential downpour keeps the creeps off the streets. Dredd simply replies that there is still plenty of crime happening behind closed doors. Dredd makes his way to a sleep machine and sets it to a regulatory 10 minutes. Imagine 10 minutes of sleep being all you need. Meanwhile, the carrier stops in the middle of nowhere and the two passengers decide to proceed on foot. Dredd dreams of being approached by the ghost of Chief Judge Fargo, his clone father, who asks him about the state of the city, along with the status of Dredd and his clone brother Rico. The stone-faced lawman replies that he had to kill Rico on account of his betrayal of the law, which outrages Fargo. He claims that Rico, Dredd, and himself are all related and it can't be possible that any of them would go bad. Dredd states that both Fargo and Rico went against the law. However, he does not blame Fargo's deterioration, as the Father of Justice did not have the benefit of the Academy. Fargo thanks Judge for the talk and then pulls his lawgiver and shoots his own head off, claiming it to be the honorable thing. Dredd tries to stop his clone father but ends up cracking his sleep machine. This dream was Dredd's third of Fargo. Dredd wonders why he could feel the pain of his twin clone Rico. Why was he feeling Judge Fargo's pain? He puts on his coat and goes out on a patrol again. At the Sleep Easy Motel, two drivers from out of town check into their room. The night manager tells them that there's no electricity, but if they need anything, they should just call for Sven. Inside the room, there erupts a loud argument between two people, prompting Sven to check the camera in the room. He looks to find that both voices are coming from the same person. Traveler takes off his coat to reveal a face inside his chest, the voice that has been admonishing him the whole trip. Sven exclaims, "There must be mutants in town." Chapter 2: The Mystery Box. Meanwhile, in the Cursed Earth, the two dead bodies that were discovered outside the diner are being investigated by judges. The deceased are identified as the actual crew of the manifest for the carrier that arrived late at night, and a bolo is placed on the fake drivers Farnes and Lopez. Back at the motel, the mutant with the face on his chest relishes a bath and tells his cohort to take a bath to wash the smell of the Cursed Earth off of him. The mutant says he would like a night out, but the voice in his chest, literally by the way, tells him off, stating that their boss, Linus, wants the job done without distractions, and that they must stick to the plan. The two mutants go to Sven and ask for directions to the Grand Hall of Justice. When the night manager jokes if it is to turn themselves in, a knife is brandished in his face. Sven gives the pair directions to reach the Hall of Justice, and after they are gone, sneak into their room. He looks inside the vent one of the mutants was previously fidgeting with and takes out a box. Around the city, Judge Dredd patrols the streets, dealing out his signature brand of absolute justice when another judge tells him about the freighter and that the driver came in using forged papers, and that all information can be found on his bicom. The two drivers sit through a tour taking them around the Grand Hall of Justice and sit in a pub afterwards. The big mutant Toei remarks that there are too many judges roaming around and that they would never make it out alive. The mutant in the shirt, named Chuck, volunteers his thin comrade named Kiever on on a suicide mission. When Kiever refuses, Chuck laughs it off, saying he wouldn't trust Kiever to get anything right. Suddenly, the two are solicited by a sex worker. Toei tries to woo her, but Chuck yells at the woman to get lost. The woman is surprised that Toei's shirt spoke. When the mutant claims that he is a ventriloquist, an increasingly annoyed Chuck shouts at the woman to get gone, causing the sex worker to leave the pair alone. Upon returning, the trio look into the vent at their motel and are shocked to find it gone. To add to their misfortune, who better to be tracking them outside their motel than Judge Dredd himself? Inside, Toei and Kiever hold a shift manager at gun and knife point, demanding to know where the box is. The manager pleads his innocence, saying that he just started his shift and that they should ask Sven, the night manager, about the box. Before I can reveal where Sven is, the door opens and a visibly annoyed Judge Dredd makes his way in from the rain. He quickly fires off several rounds from his lawgiver while radioing his location to Control. Toei pulls the manager from the desk while Kiever is peppered with bullets. The remaining mutant holds the manager as a human shield as Dredd warns him to give up. In retaliation, Toei fires his weapon through the manager, hitting Dredd in his armor and helmet. The lawman falls to the ground and Toei takes the opportunity to kick Dredd a few more times in triumph before Chuck orders him to get out of there. A bleeding Dredd tells Control that the suspect has escaped and is on the run, before passing out. The med judge attending to Dredd's wounds tells him he's got a concussion and that his arm socket will be sore for a week. He puts the lawman on 10 days rest to add insult to Dredd's injuries. Another judge combs through the cameras inside the rooms. Dredd tells his fellow judge that these were the same perps who had offed the cursed Earth drivers. The judge pulls out a tablet while telling Dredd that the deceased perp's real name is Kiever, who had 4 different IDs on him. He additionally shows Dredd last night's security footage that shows Toei reaching into the vent for a box. It is confirmed that the box in the vent has been moved. As they continue watching the footage, Toei takes off his jacket to reveal Chuck inside his t-shirt. The two discuss the mysterious boss named Linus and possible criminals with the same name. In Guy Lombardo block, Sven, the night manager, takes out the box he stole from the mutants and opens it, hoping to find some riches. He is disappointed to find a ransom note about Judge Fargo. Sven doesn't want to be involved in the matter and wants to hand the box over to the judges, but doesn't want to incur punishment for stealing. He closes the box and keeps thinking. Elsewhere, in a theater, Toei and Chuck discuss their options. Their loud conversation draws the ire of a nearby old woman, who tells Toei that he is talking to himself. Chuck snaps back at her, telling her to go away. The mutant tells his host that since Sven is a night manager, he would like to show up to work late at night. Meanwhile, in Guy Lombardo block, Dredd has tracked Sven and orders him to open his door. When nobody answers, the lawman lets himself in and reports that no one is home. He tries Sven's personal number, which the night manager anxiously sends to voicemail. Sven is on his way to work when he sees that judges have swarmed his place of work. Unbeknownst to Sven, Toei and Chuck lie in wait for the night manager as well. Very soon, the body of Sven Kafka is recovered, stabbed and slashed to death. Dredd arrives to analyze the crime scene. The body is still fresh and killed in a similar manner to the fright drivers. Dredd focuses on piecing together the information he has gathered when he suddenly finds himself hallucinating about being a cadet again, with Chief Judge Fargo advising him about the mystery box, what it may contain, and its possible connection to Fargo himself. Dredd's fellow judge catches the lawman holding his head and asks him if he is well. Dredd replies that he is dizzy and that it'll pass. The stone-faced judge does, however, decide to get a speed healing session. He bikes off, telling his cohort that the suspect is a mutant named Toei, who has killed the day manager of the motel, and 2 truck drivers on Hell's Highway. Meanwhile, in the Brad Pitt Elster's condo, an old man named Mr. Gant is visited by Toei, who names Linus as their mutual friend and asks for shelter. Inside, the old man questions Toei about who he is when Chuck pops out of the mutant's chest to ask for a drink. Toei sits down with a drink while Chuck explains to Gant that their mission was to deliver the box, but the judges are on the hunt for them and that they hope that the old man can help them for old time's sake. Elsewhere in the speed healing unit, Dredd is getting treated for his concussion. In his mind, he is a cadet yet again, in talking to the ghost of Judge Fargo. Cadet Joseph Dredd asks Fargo what he's trying to tell his clone son. Fargo sarcastically remarks that nobody can tell him or his bloodline anything because they apparently know all, and see the law as a straight line. When Dredd tries to reason that this is the very lesson Fargo inculcated in him, Fargo cuts the cadet off, telling him it's not too late. But before Dredd can figure out what it's not too late for, the session ends and he returns returns to his senses. The examiner explains Dredd's dizziness is just a concussion and recommends no strenuous movement like gymnastics for a while. As Dredd is leaving, the med judge knows that Dredd was talking to himself during the session, which the lawman simply shrugs off as age catching up. Dredd is contacted by a surveillance unit who has found Toei. Dredd rushes off to the Brad Pitt Elser's condo while radio control to get units to the condo to seal it off and look for the suspect. In Gant's home, Toei takes some items off the rack for the road and asks Chuck how they plan to get out of the city. Chuck tells his dim-witted partner the plan. Outside the condo, the entrance is blocked and everyone is told to stay put. Elsewhere, Toei revs a motorcycle and nearly crashes into a truck. Suddenly, a judge drives up beside them and orders them to pull over. The panicky mutant fires at the judge. Inside Gant's apartment, a judge radios that Gant is missing. The house droid is being uncooperative and Toei has taken the old man's hover unit. Meanwhile, the judge on the bike falls over and radios Dredd about the bike heading north on the highway. Dredd rushes to intercept the vehicle. The lawman shoots at the bike and throws Toei off. The mutant, adamant to not be captured, jumps off the highway and onto a floating H-wagon. He shouts back triumphantly at escaping from Dredd, only to turn around and get hit by the highway as the wagon goes under it. All the while, Chuck is tucked away in Toei's pocket and unaware of what just happened. As the body of Toei slowly dies out, Chuck desperately tries to wake his compatriot up, but to no avail. Dredd walks over to the mutant before he finally breathes his last breath and checks the body of Toei. He reports to his fellow judge that the mutant did not have the box in his possession. Adding to that, the box was not found in Gant's apartment either. Gant's full name is revealed to be Judge Spender J. Gant, a fossil from the olden days who did not believe in instant justice and resigned instead of retraining as a new age judge. Dredd adds that Gant has spent years opposing the new judges and even served time in prison, tying him to anti-judicial elements. The lawman also believes Gant is the man with the mystery box. Somewhere else, Old Man Gant floats out from a transporter vehicle and asks the driver to wait for him. The surveillance unit picks up Gant on the cameras and reports to Dredd that Gant is making his way towards the Grand Hall of Justice. Dredd speeds off on his bike to intercept. In an alley, Gant beckons a boy busy graffitiing a wall over to him. The old man offers the boy 100 credits for delivering the mystery box to the Grand Hall of Justice. Around the block, Judge Dredd is pulling his bike in when he spots Gant in the rain. He orders the old man to halt as he is under arrest when Gant begins having a heart attack. Dredd calls for an emergency med wagon, but it arrives too late and the old man dies from his heart attack. Dredd orders his fellow judges to search the route of Gant's hired transportation while he starts on the pedway. While walking, the lawman wonders what exactly is in the box and why so many keep dying before he can find out about it. Outside the Grand Hall of Justice, the boy walks in with Gant's box. Chapter 3: The Cursed Earth Crusade. Judge Dredd is next seen in his office calling out to Judge Logan, his assistant. He gives Logan a list of judges to prepare a team and go to the Cursed Earth early next morning. Dredd requires a few more judges, so Logan suggests Judge Osman, Curzon, and himself. Dredd is surprised that his analysis-driven administrative assistant is eager to join fieldwork, but Logan brushes off his hip injury as minor and under control with medication. Dredd agrees on the condition that if Logan breaks down, he must go back all by himself. Dredd adds that he expects casualties and is keeping a couple of med judges handy. The next day, at the crack of dawn, Dredd briefs his team about the mission outside a freight vehicle. He reveals that they received a ransom demand for the return of Judge Fargo's body. The judges are taken aback, stating that they just passed Judge Fargo's tomb in the Hall of Justice and that there is no way someone could have taken it from there. Dredd lets them in on the classified information that Fargo's tomb never had his body inside. It was a fabricated ruse that was in place due to Fargo's body being misappropriated and deemed lost forever until now. The lawman opens the back of the freighter to reveal that it is packed to the teeth with 1 billion credits. He explains that the terms of the ransom demand were that the money would be in untraceable used bills and that the transport protection would have just enough judges to ward off a random attack. Dredd tells his team that they've been given a route to follow and further instructions will follow. Judge Waters chimes in, stating that this is a lot of trouble and money to go through for a dead body. Another judge snaps at Waters, saying that Fargo is called the Father of Justice and that they can't leave his body in criminal hands. Logan inquires as to how the Justice Department knows that the captors have the real body of Fargo. Dredd answers that they have a certain amount of physical evidence. A flashback shows the little boy carrying the mystery box all the way to the front desk at the Grand Hall of Justice and keeping the box right in front of the operator. The boy says that an old man gave him 50 credits to give them the box and and the judge orders everyone to get down and calls the bomb defusal. Chief Judge Hershey calls Dredd in and gives him a note. She tells the lawman that inside the box was a tissue sample that matched Dredd's. As he reads the ransom note, Hershey remarks that Dredd doesn't seem surprised, to which the lawman simply states that he had his suspicions about Fargo's involvement. Hershey states that the age and levels of contaminants absorbed belong to a man who has lived through most of the last century. That is impossible to replicate. She also adds that the tissue was fresh, meaning it was taken from a living organism, pointing to the fact that Judge Fargo might quite possibly still be alive. Back in the present, the convoy of judges ride out with the carrier, flanking it on all sides. They ride through the crumbling remains of the old America across the desolate landscape known as the Cursed Earth. They pass through tiny settlements of survivors who have been adversely affected by the Cursed Earth's environment. Some throw rocks at the judges, but they press on. Logan asks Dredd when the captors will make contact. The stone-faced judge replies that they will wait till the convoy is well away from the city. They come upon the charred side of a rad wagon and discover that there are bodies strewn about. One body is identified as a mutant attacker wearing homemade armor, and a woman is found dead, riddled with bullets. A man crawls out, gasping that they have taken his child before dying. He requests the judges to save his baby boy. Dredd tells his cohorts that it is not their business and that they should move ahead. He tries contacting the Justice Watch but only gets static. The other judges argue that they should save the child, adding that Fargo may be the father of justice, but he is still old bones while the boy could still be alive. Dredd relents and orders 3 of his units to come with him while leaving Judge Waters in charge of the other 4 and the truck. Dredd and his unit ride on and ask some settlers whether a party passed by having a child. The settlers are afraid for their lives and claim that they don't look at the mutated abominations known as the children of the apocalypse. Back at the truck, Waters tells Logan to keep trying the radio as he spots 2 watchers on the hill across from them. One of the mutants, called Nicey, asks his comrade named Quigley how many judges he has spotted. Quigley counts 5 judges and the truck. They plan to kill the judges and take whatever is in the truck that they are guarding, a legion of mutants behind them. Meanwhile, Dredd and his cohorts pass through a valley and are spotted by a pair of mutant boys. One of them, named Billy, rushes back to warn their tribe of the approaching judges while the other slips and falls down, right next to the judges and passes out. Dredd orders his men to get the boy up and take him with them. In the mutant tribe, a woman is giving birth while the whole tribe waits outside. Billy runs and tells his elders that normies, or normal humans, are coming. The judges ride in and Dredd orders his troops to spread out and avoid any unnecessary bloodshed. A tribesman throws a spear at the judges, which is easily evaded, and the tribesman is knocked down with non-lethal force. Dredd launches an explosion from his bike and orders the tribe to stand down. He declares that the judges simply want the baby boy and to find out who destroyed the radwagon. The tribals refuse to give up the child, claiming that they took him for his own protection. They declare that he will be raised as a mutant and that they had nothing to do with the radwagon. Elsewhere, Waters' group is staring down an attacking legion of mutants. Judge Waters takes charge and orders Med Judge Khan to bury the truck. Judge Venables appears worried about the scrapyard army approaching, but Waters appears unfazed. Chapter 4: The Showdown. Back at the Children of the Apocalypse's base, the woman finally delivers her baby. The judges clock multiple normie youths in the tribe's midst and demand to know where they came from. A young man named Jimmy steps in and declares that they would all be dead without the tribe's intervention. Jimmy defies Dredd's orders of coming with the judges and stands his ground, threatening to fight the judges if he has to. Suddenly, the tribe parts to let their eldest through. They are a super mutated being with several heads. They order Jimmy to stand down and tell Dredd that they will speak for the village. They declare themselves to be the first to be born after the war. They explain that the poison of the Cursed Earth has spread through the village bloodlines and that they brought up the normie babies in a bid to purify their bloodlines of the poison. Dredd feels pity for the tribe but insists that all normies must be returned to Mega City. The village readies themselves to fight the judges when the woman comes out of the tent. She declares that their fight is for nothing as her baby was born with 2 heads. Back at the truck, Nicey pulls up a short distance from the judges and asks them what is in the truck. Waters replies that it is none of his concern, but if his army tries to find out, they will be crawling through their own blood. Nicey ignores the threat and signals Quigley to blow the war horn. As the scrapyard army begins their assault, The judges fire their bike cannons at them. Back in the villager laments their only hope vanishing when one of the judges analyzes their soil to find 16 different dangerous contaminants, 1,000 times over the limit. Dredd announces to the village that the soil is the culprit, not their genes. He tells them that if they want a cure, they must move away. The village wiseheads ask how they can part with their home just like that, when one of the judges managed to make contact with Justice Watch. Dredd tells the wiseheads that they can be moved where the land is clean, but the rescued normies must be sent back to Mega City. Billy insists on staying with the tribe, but Dredd tells him that the deal is that only after he's old enough to make the decision will he be allowed to go back to the tribe. He advises the young man to choose wisely, or there will be no future for the children of the apocalypse. On their way back to the truck, the judges reflect the horrors of war harming generations when suddenly they hear the sound of gunfire. Dredd realizes the escort unit is in trouble and hurries his troops towards the truck. Meanwhile, Waters and her team are under heavy fire, but are managing to hold their own despite being heavily outnumbered. Suddenly, Nicey manages to shoot Judge Venables in the chest. Waters prepare her troops to make their final stand when suddenly the cavalry arrives. Dredd and his units rain down heavy fire from behind the scrapyard army and mercilessly gun them down. Dredd feels angry with himself for getting sidetracked and putting the mission in danger. Someone had to pay, and boy did he make them pay. The judges decimate the scrapyard army, forcing them to retreat. The judges cover the body of Med Judge Venables, and Dredd apologizes to his fallen comrade and asks Med Judge Khan if he can manage his duties without Venables. Khan agrees but says he might need assistance. At the same time, the harbor ship Dredd has requested arrives. An injured scrapyard fighter asks Logan for help. Logan agrees and shoots the man dead. The harbor ship takes Venables' body and leaves to relocate the children of the Apocalypse tribe. Dredd orders his team to move the truck and mobilize. Chapter 5. Welcome to Fargoville. They stop at a trading post where Dredd is expecting the next set of instructions. They are given a route map and told to keep riding. That night at camp, Dredd announces plans for the group to split up again, much to the annoyance of Waters. He decides to take Khan and Logan and tells Waters to take the rest of the judges to a river crossing in the morning. He instructs Waters to stay in touch with aerial units and to call them if they got into trouble. Khan, Logan, and Dredd make their way towards a town with old school sheriffs and mutant slaves. A mutant warns of the incoming judges but is punished for speaking. As they ride into town, they find out its name, Fargoville, the birthplace of Judge Eustace Fargo. The town looks like a super strict, archaic land, with bodies hanging off signs with rules on them. Dredd warns his men to be alert when a band suddenly welcomes the judges into town. The town mayor, Eustace Blunt, and Sheriff Eustace Garvey welcome them. Mayor Blunt declares that since the devastation of America, the town has sworn to uphold the torch of justice in the area among the mutant hordes. He invites the judges to a public execution of some mutants, but Dredd declines. Some townsfolk point out the similarity between Dredd and Fargo and reveals that he is a clone of Fargo. He asks for information of his clone father's life, to which the mayor points them to the town museum. Inside the museum, the curator, Eustace Johnson, offers his services to the judges. He shows them Fargo's first bike, weapons, and portraits of the old judge's parents. Johnson sits the judges in a theater to play them Fargo's life story in a film. Dredd watches the film and grumbles in anger. When Logan questions Dredd about it, the lawman simply tells his assistant to keep watching. Outside, an old woman accuses the sheriff of helping a thief. The confused sheriff asks her which thief she thinks he is helping, when the woman tells him that Dredd is a thief who stole the very flesh of Eustace Fargo. Inside, Logan and Khan are enjoying football highlights of Fargo's college days. The film talks about Eustace's graduation from Harvard, his appointment as a special prosecutor for the rising street crime, the failure of the old Justice Department, the recommendation of Fargo for curtailing due process and arming judges with the power to dispense instant justice, and the opposition from Congress. The film continues, showing the introduction of the stringent new judicial code and scrapping all the protections of due process in the Constitution, and Fargo's recruitment of new judges, including setting up centers across the nation. The film shows Fargo's appointment as the first chief judge of the new judicial force, the brutal campaign against street gangs, and the formation of the first mega mega city. At that point, Dredd has seen quite enough and demands the film to be switched off. Much to the confusion of the museum curator, Dredd demands to know the truth from Johnson and why the town has rewritten Fargo's history. Dredd reveals that Fargo was not an only child, but had an identical twin named Ephraim, and demands to know why there is no mention of Ephraim in the film. When the curator tries to feign ignorance, Dredd tells him that the film has been doctored to remove Ephraim and demands an answer. Johnson stutters that it is a crime to invoke the brother's name and that he can't say anything. Dredd grabs the man by his collar and asks what happened to Ephraim Fargo. The curator wails that the brother is long dead. He reveals that Ephraim went bad and the town kicked him out to go live in the backwoods. When Dredd presses Johnson further, the man says he can't say anything further or else he will be hung. Dredd releases the man and tells him to get lost. Logan is surprised at finding out about Fargo's twin and hypothesizes the tissue in the box could belong to Ephraim. Dredd concurs with Logan's assessment. A pair of them walk out of the museum to find the entire police force of the town brandishing their guns at them, with Med Judge Khan restrained. Logan reaches for his lawgiver but gets shot in the arm. Dredd is beaten to his knees and declared guilty for illegal possession of Fargo's flesh and blood. Make it make sense. And his two fellow judges are judged to be his accomplices. They are sentenced to hang the next day, but before that, Dredd is made to work in the cornfields. There, the stone-faced lawman gets whipped and made to carry a heavy boulder. A mutant asks why Dredd gets to keep his helmet, to which the water boss replies that they don't want to see Dredd's face. Dredd maintains his resolve and keeps working, biding his time. Back at the sheriff's lockup, Con patches Logan up with a tourniquet. Con asks Logan about Dredd's reason for bringing them to this town when Logan tells his old colleague about Ephraim Fargo and their possible wild goose chase. Despite his state, Logan still believes Dredd will rescue them. That night, Dredd is made to work until it collapses in a heap. Before his captors get a chance to react, the lawman throws dirt in one's eye, disarms one of the men and kills two of them with a shotgun. He forces the surviving member to untie his chains and then knocks him out with the butt of his shotgun. He wears his shirt and scavenges for equipment from the bodies around him. Back in town, a young man swoops around on Dredd's lawmaster before being knocked out by Dredd. The lawman ties the bars of the lockup to the bike and pulls them right off the wall. He gathers Khan and Logan after killing the guards. He checks up on his unit and they start blasting their way out of the lockup when they are discovered by the sheriff and his troops. Dredd goes on a rampage, blasting everyone in his way. The sheriff, the warden, and the mayor hide as Dredd unleashes carnage on their men. The mayor instructs his men to shoot at Dredd with the judge's own guns. This proves to be a fatal mistake as the lawgivers are programmed to only work with the biometrics of their assigned judge. The arms of all three men blew up in smithereens as they tried to press the triggers of the lawgivers. Meanwhile, outside of town, a group of horseback riders hear the ruckus in town and go to investigate. Dredd is forced to pause his rampage when the mayor threatens to hang Logan and Con from the gallows. The lawman barks at the mayor that he will execute every last one of them if his unit is not taking off the scaffold. From a far enough distance, the riders intervene by shooting the ropes around Logan and Con's necks and ride into town, guns blazing. They are identified as the Fargos, the obvious rival clan of the town full of Eustaces. The head honcho corners the mayor and shoots him in the eye for trying to hang one of their kinfolk, likely referencing Dredd. The sheriff is shot dead as well. The leader identifies himself as Randy Fargo, grandson of Ephraim Fargo, and offers to help Dredd and his men. They ride on for an hour and are welcomed to Fargo country, where a feast is held for their kinsmen. Dredd and Logan are treated for their respective injury by Con, while Dredd inquires about why Ephraim Fargo has been wiped from Fargoville records. Townsfolk explain that the brothers were fundamentally different despite being twins. So when their parents held Ephraim to the same standards as their holier-than-thou brother, he got sick of it and settled out in Fargo country to be an outlaw, away from his folk's reach. Dredd then requests to examine Ephraim's body to ascertain whether the tissue belongs to Eustace and not Ephraim. While the villagers are outraged initially, Randy calms them down and grants the judge their request out of curiosity. The villagers dig through the night and find a skeleton of Ephraim's grave. Con gets to work but confirms that the body in the grave is very likely Ephraim's. The next morning, the judge pack up and make their way to meet up with Judge Waters and the escort unit with a truck. Chapter 6. The Fargo Scandal. That night, the judges make camp and discuss the newsreel in Fargoville and Fargo's real age. They are discussing Fargo's burial when Dredd reveals that Fargo wasn't really buried because he wasn't really dead, and that the video of Fargo dying in the drive-by was merely a simulation. Waters mentions a rumor of Fargo being seen 20 years after his apparent death when Dredd swears his troops to secrecy and lets them in on the secret. He explains that Fargo's new judicial system was hard harsh, but accepted by the citizens. The prison population soared, but due to automation, the costs were kept down. Under Fargo, the Justice Department became as powerful as Congress itself. Built on Fargo's reputation as a principled and incorruptible man, carried it through. Dredd explains that everyone believed in Fargo, and even a tiny fracture in his image could bring the whole edifice to a collapse. Then came the scandal. From what Dredd could ascertain, there was a woman named Sequinta Tells, the vice chair of the Commission of Legal Reform, who would liaison with Fargo. Suddenly, Judge Renga picks up movement on the bike sensors and sends out a snake-like camera called the Sidewinder out to check it out. Dredd continues that one day, 2 judges were dispatched to a possible homicide call. The caller was unknown, but it was suspected to be Fargo's enemies. The 2 judges found Fargo in a compromising position in bed with Hells. The judges remark at the irony of the situation, while Renga finds the scrapyard army crawling towards their position on his camera. The judges plan to ambush the army by splitting up and hitting them from 2 sides. As they get on their bikes, Dredd continues his story that the Justice Department covered the entire scandal up by silencing the officers involved, but they could not convince Fargo, who had instituted the monastic code and fallen below his own standards, to let it go. Dredd explains that Fargo never had the benefit of the academy, and that self-denial was drilled into the modern judges to make them stronger. The year was 2051 and Fargo resigned, citing personal reasons. His deputies Solomon and Goodman told Fargo that they had informed the president that the chief judge was reconsidering and that they needed Fargo. They wanted Eustace to cut himself some slack, but Fargo was unable to hold himself to a different standard than others, and when the 2 deputies left the room, Fargo picked up his firearm and took his own life. Fargo was rushed to the hospital where the doctors worked tirelessly to remove the bone fragments from the chief judge's brain. Outside, Goodman and Solomon plotted to cover up the entire fiasco by silencing everyone involved. Dredd's story is briefly paused as the judge plowed through the entire scrapyard army, taking the mutants by surprise. Dredd instructs his unit to leave no survivors and every last mutant is killed mercilessly. The mutant leader Nicey offers to parley with Dredd before the lawman shoots the mutant in the head. They decide to continue riding on as dawn approaches. Logan asks Dredd how the story ends. The lawman tells them the official story was cooked up for the public, that Eustace Fargo died from gunshot wounds sustained in a drive-by shooting. The president made Fargo a martyr and appointed Solomon as a new chief judge. The judges argue over the reasoning behind the cover-up and the ethics of the system they uphold. Dredd explains that the reason they passed Fargo off as dead was because Solomon felt Fargo's sacrifice as a martyr was a better tool than the truth of the chief judge being a vegetable. As they ride on, Dredd tells them the second part of the story and Fargo's hand in it from personal experience. Chapter 7: The Atom War. The doctors had stabilized Fargo and opined that should he ever recover, he might retain a certain degree of lucidity. The body of Fargo was moved to a secret facility in Tennessee, while a fake funeral was held to honor Fargo back in Mega City 1, with a tomb being built for the former chief judge in the Grand Hall of Justice. The president even gave a moving eulogy. Meanwhile, Judge Solomon was approached with a plan by Judge Judd to clone Fargo to create their own copies of the Father of Justice. Solomon had his reservations and refused to sanction the project. The next year, the 3 mega cities were granted power of self-governance by Congress. Fargo began to make progress, even going as far as talking and walking a little, but the doctor recorded cognitive decline in Fargo and proposed to place the former chief judge in suspended animation. Fargo's body is cryogenically preserved. By 2055, violence broke out en route to Mega City 1 due to immigration control rules getting enforced. In 2057, Solomon stepped down as chief judge, and Judge Goodman succeeded him. Solomon advises Goodman to arm the Justice Department enough to take on the military, as the potential new vice president will have expansionist ambition. The PSI division was also established around the same time. By 2060, the Harbison Booth ticket had won the presidency. By 2064, Judge Judd was approached by Goodman to create a cloned army. 2 of the clones were Dredd himself and his twin brother Rico. 2 years later, the clones had become cadets at the Academy of Law. The Academy principal is impressed with the progress and fast-tracks them up the ranks. Meanwhile, in present day, Dredd and his unit take the shelter in a cave as a firestorm occurs, and acid rain lit by lightning makes for quite a horrifying spectacle as the judges set up camp. Judge continues the story of President Robert Booth, the country's last and worst president. Dredd explains that international relations were already strained and Booth's corruption and greed for power lit the powder keg. The flashbacks show the US actively deployed troops troops into foreign territories and completely disregard international laws and territorial sovereignty. This act was met with heavy resistance from around the globe, with all countries opposing the tyrannical move by US. There was even pushback from within Booth's own office from Special Advisor Arnold Benedict about the move, which resulted in Benedict being found floating in the president's pool, a suicide apparently. Judge Renga asked Dredd why the Justice Department didn't intervene, to which the lawman states that it was out of their jurisdiction. He continues that there was a meeting of the chief judges of the 3 great mega cities on June 12, organized by Judge Goodman. The judges had praised Judge Judd's clone program and discussed the impending war that the president was hell-bent on unleashing. They discussed arresting him on grounds of insanity, talks of approaching the president on a united front, and the rumors of Booth disbanding the Justice Department and returning cities to trials by jury. Their discussion is halted by an announcement from President Booth. The screen showed the President of the United States declaring nuclear war and launching missiles against countries around the globe, much to the absolute horror of the judges. The chief judges are implored to leave for their cities by Judge Solomon as the nuclear war began. The other countries retaliated and bombed America, resulting in catastrophic damage to the topography. Dredd narrates that Chief Judge Suarez was caught in the strikes and never made it to Mega City 2. All over the globe, billions of people perished in an unholy firestorm. The Great Atom War had begun, and the world would never be the same again. American cities across the Midwest burned up at the retaliatory strikes, and the nuclear screens were all that protected the megacities from a similar fate. In Mega City 1, Chief Judge Goodman had declared a state of emergency, and all cadets over the age of 14 were assigned to active service. Dredd and his clone brethren wanted to join the older cadets and help the efforts. Though initially met with resistance, the cadets were assigned to active duty and issued with street judge gear and given the temporary rank of judges. The children were assigned to Judge Kinnison and rode out with him in the face of adversity. Outside, the city was in absolute bedlam, with citizens running around and abandoning their vehicles. The cadets used the autopilot in their cars to unjam the traffic and get the routes moving again. Dredd and Rico tried helping a hysterical woman who kept screaming, and Rico decided to quit wasting time, chucked the woman in her trunk and set the car to the woman's home address. Meanwhile, looters lay waste to many stores. The judges shoot at the criminals and sent them running. Judge Kinnison was impressed with Rico and Dredd's attitude and ruthlessness. A woman was getting sexually assaulted by a group of men in her apartment when the judges were clearing a building. The dogs in the building were feasting on a corpse and were put down when Dredd heard the woman's screams. The men were revealed to be military soldiers, and Kinson killed 2 of them in the room to save the woman. Unfortunately, the judge missed one soldier coming around the corner who riddled Kinnison with bullets until the boys shot him dead. Dredd and Rico tried to arrest the remaining soldiers who, underestimating them, tried to draw their weapons on the young judges. The brothers quickly kill the soldiers and check on Kinson, who praises them before dying. Back in the cave, Dredd reveals that after 24 hours, the nukes had stopped after the entire world turned into an apocalyptic wasteland and it was chaos everywhere. Later, Howard Lind, a former senior aide to the president, approached Chief Judge Goodman and confessed that Arnold Benedict was murdered by order of President Booth. He reveals that Benedict displayed doubt about Booth's vision and threatened to go public with his knowledge of the president's activities. He was dragged away by Secret Service, and Lind heard the conspiracy to silence Benedict by making it seem like he committed suicide. Although Lind's evidence lacked credibility due to dearth of physical evidence, Solomon and Goodman grilled the advisor further on the knowledge Benedict possessed that cost him his life. A profusely sweating Lind revealed that Booth rigged the election in '68 and stole the presidency. The smoking gun the judges needed came in the form of a security tape found in a safe deposit box registered to Arnold Benedict. It revealed that Booth had conspired with Ray Margolis, his campaign manager, to fix the vote and win the election. While Booth didn't expressly agree to fixing the vote, there was enough evidence to confront the president and demand his resignation. Dredd narrates that Booth laughed off the evidence, calling the tape a forgery, leaving impeachment the only way to get rid of him, which was out of the scope of everyone at the Justice Department except one man. At the time, Dredd and Rico were working as full-time judges and sleeping as little as them too. The twins were woken up and told to report to a medical research facility. The boys wondered why they are being resigned on their way to the facility. Inside, they were made to clean up and brought to a room with a man on a wheelchair. It was revealed that the man is none other than their clone father, former Chief Judge Eustace Fargo. The boys were gobsmacked at the revelation when Fargo revealed that in a moment of embarrassment tried taking his own life, and the Justice Department decided to conceal the truth and give him a glorious death instead of a moment of human frailty, adding that since then they have been trying to repair him for some reason. Fargo was summoned to the Grand Hall and decided to take the boys as his bodyguards. In the Grand Hall of Justice, Goodman and Solomon looked to Fargo to appeal to President Booth and get him to resign. Fargo refused, stating that revealing their deception regarding the cover-up of Fargo's death would destroy the justice system's reputation. Goodman reasoned that leaving Booth in charge would mean the end of everything the nation stands for. Fargo then suggested a path, a very dangerous and blood-covered one, but a lawful one, to remove Booth once and for all, invoking the Declaration of Independence to perform a coup d'etat. Chief Judge Goodman announced an ultimatum to President Robert Booth and declared his tenure to be at an end, adding that until further notice, the Justice Department would govern Mega City 1. He urged the military to pledge allegiance to the new authority and announced discussions with foreign leaders to end the disastrous nuclear war. A news report published a security tape released by the Justice Department showing Booth and his campaign manager plotting to rig the election. Around the country, people lost their faith in Booth and called for his resignation. The news report, coupled with testimony from Mr. Lint, shook the Booth administration to its core, and soon, widespread protests occurred outside the White House, demanding Booth's head. The military outside the White House shot and killed many protesters trying to make their way in. Inside, Booth was briefed by staff about Justice Fargo being revived. This news came from the administration's mole in the Justice Department, and Booth saw an opportunity to discredit the judges and remain in charge. He ordered his military to attack the research facility housing Fargo and bring him back alive. Chapter 8. The Justice Department Strikes Back. Back at the medical research facility, Fargo was being sedated and put back on ice. Rico and Dredd were taking a break, looking out at the destruction caused in their city and discussing punishment for Booth when out of nowhere, military airships dropped hundreds of soldiers to attack the facility. The clone brothers scrabbled to safety and radio for backup. They rushed to Fargo's medical chamber and began moving the old judge out of the facility when they were attacked by the military. Dredd and Rico pushed a gurney into the elevator and laid down suppressive fire with their lawgivers. The military cut the power to the elevator, causing Dredd to place a charge, blowing up the cables holding the elevator. Outside, the military placed charges to blow open the door to the elevator as well. Dredd blew up his charge right before the military's, causing the cadets to plummet downwards and come to a screeching halt. The pneumatic safety brakes of the elevator and Dredd's quick thinking had saved their bacon. They wheeled Fargo into the basement garage and got him into an ambulance before the military found them and began firing at them. The cadets used their intelligence and advanced training to ward off all military personnel and drove their ambulance out of the facility. They drove and shot through the oncoming forces and were almost free when the military airship locked onto them and peppered the ambulance. All hope seemed lost until the Justice Department's tank destroyed the airship before it could do any more damage to the ambulance. While the military surrendered to the judges, it was reported that they were sent to capture Fargo on the president's orders, prompting Goodman and Solomon to discuss the possibility of an informant being in their ranks. In the meantime, Goodman is prompted to take the battle to Booth and issue the order for arresting the president. Dredd reveals that due to Goodman building up their ranks, the Justice Department survived the battle against the military when it marched to tighten the net around the White House. Thousands of military personnel surrendered, demoralized by Booth's election rigging scandal. Rico and Dredd were chosen to take part in the final assault on the White House. The step was bold, but necessary. The Justice Department blasted their way through military guards to find that President Booth had escaped in a hover fighter. Congress and the Senate were suspended due to their inaction to curb Booth's actions. Mega City 1 was in complete chaos, rife with looters and lawless elements of the military, prompting the Justice Department to begin ruling the city with an iron fist. Curfews being imposed, shoot-to-kill policy for minor offenses. Dredd reveals that Booth had hidden in a military stronghold in the western US, and that he wasn't captured until the next year. Unfortunately, after all the bloodshed, they could not bring themselves to kill the last president of the US. He stopped his narration to check on Judge Logan, who is looking worse for wear. Logan brushes it off as just feeling a bit hot. Dredd continues his story, explaining that upon the recommendation of Judge Solomon, President Booth was sentenced to 100 years of suspended animation, frozen and stored at Fort Knox until future generations decide his fate. Suddenly, Logan doubles over in pain. It is revealed that the bacterial infection infection from his bullet wound has spread across his arm and is slowly killing him. Dredd admonishes his assistant for not revealing the severity of the wound sooner, to which the young judge replies that he didn't want Dredd to send him back. Logan jokes that he had thought his bad hip would let him down. Judge Renga tries to call for medical assistance on the radio, but the firestorm messes up the signal. Med Judge Khan patches Logan up in the meantime and packs the wound in antibiotic gel. Renga sends out a drone to fly above the storm and get a message through when 3 robots, speaking in turns, launch a rocket at the drone, shattering it into pieces. The robots send a message to the judges from across the valley, telling the unit to follow them. Dredd orders a response, stating that they have a sick man and they won't leave until he is fit. The robots signal back that they will leave at dawn. Dredd uses a pair of night scopes to look at who the mystery messengers are. He is shocked to see Snap, Crackle, and Pop, the nursemaids of Robert L. Booth. That night, as the judges sat around the unconscious Logan, Dredd concludes his story, narrating that after the war, both he and Rico were sent back to the academy, and Fargo remained in his advisory role in the background. Fargo was slowly deteriorating, and his clash with Judge Judd marked a turning point. Judd wanted to create a completely obedient populace with the help of cloning, expanding its use to make citizens as well. Fargo vetoed the motion, stating that playing God was not the department's function and that they existed to police the citizens they had, not create the citizens they wanted to have. Subsequently, an assassination attempt was made on Fargo, but the use of a dummy saved the former chief judge. Dredd recounted his last meeting with Fargo in the Grand Hall with his brother. Fargo wished to say goodbye to his clone children and told them that they must be better judges than he was. He contemplated that while his reign had created order and respect for the department, it might have failed to make them happy. Rico and Dredd countered that their job wasn't to make people happy, only to establish control within the confines of the law. Fargo stated that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness was promised as well, to which the boys stated that only the pursuit, not the finding of happiness, was promised, adding that the citizens have life and liberty only so long as they don't break the law. Fargo remarks with an air of disappointment that the academy taught the clones well. Dredd finally states that Fargo was placed in suspended animation, and one day, when they looked in his tank for a routine checkup, they found his body had been substituted. While it was never admitted as it would be too embarrassing, the theft was regarded as an inside job. 2 Med judges who were sympathizers of Judge Judd were the prime suspects, and both they and the body disappeared and were never seen since. When Dredd took on Judge Judd and his Judah army at their base, he didn't find Fargo's body there either. Judge Waters remarks that since Fargo was in suspended animation, there is a chance he may still be alive. Dredd agrees that while he doesn't know what happened subsequent to the theft, Waters' theory does have some evidence backing it. At the crack of dawn, the 3 robots approach the judges, waving a white flag. They are dressed in the uniforms of the Southern Division of the New Mutant Army. Dredd tells his unit that he had left the robots on a farm where Robert Booth, now re-sentenced to hard labor for life, was. Renga remarks that it's the New Mutant Army that they're up against, to which Sanchez questions why they are recruiting robots for their cause. Dredd meets the robots, identifying them as the Medbots who were charged with tending to Robert Booth. The robots do not recognize the name, prompting Renga to think they have been reprogrammed. Dredd shows the bots the money, and they reply that they will return in a week after checking all of it. Dredd counters by saying that he will go with them to Fargo, and once he has confirmed they have the body, the judges will arrange the exchange. The boss discuss between themselves and agree to the offer. Waters warns Dredd that he might be heading into a trap, and Dredd informs her that she will have to get him out of it, telling her to follow from a distance. Chapter 9. Revenge of the Disgraced President. Dredd rides with the robots as more people slip out of the trees to escort them. He is made to give up all his weapons to a pair of mutants who take the lawman to the encampment of the New Mutant Army. They take him to mysterious Linus, who is revealed to be none other than an aged Robert Linus Booth. Dredd confronts Snap, Crackle, and Pop for claiming they didn't know Booth, to which the robots simply say that they lied. The lawman then turns his attention to Booth, who claims that he was unlawfully cast out and that he is still the rightful president of the United States, adding that he intends to take back what's rightfully his, America itself. Dredd calls Booth scum, prompting the mutant army to attack him. The lawman holds his own, punching and kicking away the raggedy army, but eventually the numbers are too much and Dredd is subdued, with a mutant breaking the judge's teeth for his insolence. Booth orders his men to go after the truck of money with heavy firepower, warning them that the judges will not hand it over willingly. The mutant army rides out in search of the truck full of money. All the while, the judges lay hiding from a vantage point outside their camp. Judge Curzon states that they can take on the army, but Waters, now in command, tells him to keep down and shut up. Booth taunts the beaten and bruised Dredd about the judge's holier-than-thou principles. He ridicules the punishment given to him, first in suspended animation, then hard labor in a hillbilly camp. The robots kick Dredd further. Booth boasts that he was once the most powerful man on the planet. He mocks Dredd's naivety for thinking Booth wouldn't manipulate the hillbillies into working for him. Dredd, through broken teeth, demands to know where Fargo's body is. Outside camp, Waters' unit is serving the enemy strength when two Hicks discover their hideout. Thankfully, Renga and Curson knock them out before the unit's cover is blown. The army's snatch party finds the truck unattended and starts embezzling the ransom money. Back at the camp, the judges dress up like the mutants and tell the nearby outposts to follow them to find some naked women. The dumb hillbillies are soon tied up and the judges take their clothes to blend into the camp. Logan is told by Waters to stay with their bikes as he is too injured to be of help. Meanwhile, Booth takes Dredd to a barn, where he tells the story of how he heard superstitions about a god judge who fell to the earth and was worshipped by the mutant tribes. Upon investigating, the former president found Fargo's cryo capsule being worshipped in the caves of Walton Mountain. Dredd questions how mutants could maintain the machine, to which Booth reveals that the capsule was state-of-the-art and automated. Dredd deduces that the med judges must have escaped with the capsule, but ran into some trouble and ejected the capsule, which the mutants in the mountain witnessed. Dredd says that he is satisfied with the evidence and is ready to organize the evidence. Booth laughs in his face, telling the lawman that there won't be a handover because the former president had Fargo's body, Dredd himself, and the money to boot. Booth orders Dredd to be taken to the courthouse, where he will be tried for treason. Outside the barn, the judges locate the munition store and wait for Waters' instructions. The truck is brought in with the ransom money, and the mayor in charge of the snatch party reports that the judges got scared and ran away, leaving the truck. A theory Booth rejects. He figures something fishy afoot and orders the sentries to be doubled. Dredd's unit, all under cover, tell Judge Osmond to give them a diversion. In the courthouse, Booth presides over the trial of Judge Dredd, with the three robots acting as a tribunal. Dredd refuses to play along, calling Booth a lunatic. Outside the armory, the ransom notes that got embezzled by the snatch party begin to combust. At the armory, Osmond and his cohorts create a ruckus, drawing in the guards of the armory close enough to kill them all. Back in the courthouse, Dredd declares that the trial is a farce and Booth will just kill him anyway. Booth accuses the judges of tearing up the Constitution and stealing America. He demands the ultimate sanction on Dredd as the supposed rightful president of the United States. At the armory, Osmond holds off the army as Curson and Sanchez go inside to recover the truck. Inside, the money starts smoking and catches fire. The chemical coating on the money was reacting to the air too quickly and was burning up an inferno. The judges hop into the truck and rush out of the armory in a fiery spectacle. Osmond tells Waters to expect her diversion any second as the armory blows up with a loud boom. The explosion collapses the courthouse and leaves the camp desolate. Waters radios Osmond on their status, to which the judges reply that they are operational but stuck in rubble. Renga frees an ever ungrateful Dredd when Snap, Crackle, and Pop fire at Dredd. Renga pushes Dredd out of the way and shoots a high explosive round at the robots, causing them to combust and die together. Con and Waters haul a bruised Booth up. Dredd orders his unit to get Fargo's capsule. They move Booth to the barn where the capsule resides. Dredd orders his men to move the capsule into the beaten-up money truck. Outside the barn, the army mayor and the remaining mutant army stand by a tank and tell the judges to hand over the president and surrender. Dredd decides to test Booth's army's loyalty and straps the former president to the front of the truck. They ply the truck out with a shell-shocked Booth stuck to the engine. The mutants contemplate their options on whether shooting the president is worth letting the judges get away. They argue that the president didn't pay them for months and finally paid them in combustible money, concluding it isn't as valuable an asset, and they can simply elect a new one if they need one. They decide to fire at the judges through Booth and rip the screaming former president to shreds with bullets. The tank fires at the truck, which manages to take the beating and keep moving ahead. Dredd says the truck is armored but can't take much more damage. Out of nowhere, Judge Logan rides in with all the other judges' bikes and activates their cannons together. The bikes take the mutant army by surprise and cause massive damage. Curson tries the truck's engine to find that they are still operational when a straggler launches a rocket at Logan, throwing the judge off his bike. Dredd gets out of the truck, shoots the straggler, and orders Con to put the injured Logan in the truck. Once Logan is secure, Dredd orders his unit to start riding, the lawman himself getting on his bike and leading the other bikes out with him. Con is surprised at how Logan with the bum hip and poisoned arm managed to pull off the rescue, which Logan bruises off as just a knack. Some distance on, Dredd spots the Justice Department's airship that arrives to pick up the judges. Dredd asks the crew how they found them, to which the crew cheekily reply that they just follow the smoke that Dredd left in his wake. The new mutant army chasing them is decimated in seconds with the help of the ship's cannons. While they watch the destruction, Waters makes a joke about Dredd's broken teeth, and the remaining judges admire the shot-up corpse of President Robert Booth. Chapter 10 Conclusion. Back in Mega City 1, Dredd chats with Judge Logan, who is getting treatment for various parts of his body, including his bad hip. Dredd goes to meet Chief Judge Hershey, who is overseeing Fargo's treatment. Inside the operating room, the doctors declare that the former Chief Judge's vital organ functions are operative. Hershey exclaims that the Father of Justice is still alive. The doctors try to speak to Judge Fargo, who tries to respond but begins to spasm, causing the medical team to rush to revive him. The next 2 days, the doctors tried their best to keep Fargo alive, but by the second day, the old judge was nearly at death's door. The attending doctors tell Dredd that the vital organs are too far damaged by cryogenic fluid, adding that Fargo won't survive the night. Dredd wonders if it had all been worth losing Med Judge Venables, Judge Logan losing many parts of his body. He concludes that it was necessary, and that the judges could have never left the Father of Justice in the hands of a madman like Booth. After Fargo's interaction with Judge Hershey, Dredd is called into the room to have a lost conversation with his clone father. Fargo asks for both Dredd and Rico, obviously unaware of the fate of Dredd's brother. For context, Rico turned evil and had to be put down by Dredd. The Father of Justice in his dying breath tells Dredd that he tried his best to deny the truth, but cannot believe it anymore. He tells his clone son that the judges went too far with their enforcement of the law. Dredd argues that Booth had to go and that Fargo only did what had to be done, but the old man held Dredd's hands and exclaimed that the judges became monsters, that their greed killed the American dream and in turn, America itself. Fargo begs Dredd to fix it and fix the justice system while there's still time, before slowly flatlining. The doctors rush in to try and resuscitate Fargo, but the old judge finally passes away. A small service is held at Fargo's tomb with a few select judges in attendance. Chief Judge Hershey and Dredd watch the service from the sides. Dredd asks Hershey what Fargo spoke to her about. Hershey replies saying it was nothing important, just stand-up platitudes about keeping the city in safe hands. She asks Dredd what Fargo told him. Dredd, still contemplating the final words of his clone father, simply state that it was pretty much the same thing as he told Hershey. And that was the origin story of both the tyrannical Justice Department and their most loyal servant, Judge Joseph Dredd himself. Comment what you liked about the story, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on. Have a marvelous day ahead.